This is the disappearance of Dennis Martin, a 6-year-old boy who went missing in the Smoky Mountains in 1969. It's the weekend of Father's Day. Dennis, along with his father, grandfather, and brother, go camping in the Smoky Mountains. They do this trip every year. The Smoky Mountains are located in Tennessee and North Carolina, if you didn't know. The reason they're called the Smoky Mountains is because they look smoky. It's a natural occurrence that happens from the VOCs, volatile organic compounds. The smell of newly cut grass is an example of VOCs. So basically, the forest naturally creates a smoky vapor, one that makes it hard to find a missing child. Before we continue, let's take a break to hear a brief message from not our sponsor.
If you're looking for a little excitement, Diet Coke has a chance you'll jump at. It's the Diet Coke Sony Adventure of a Lifetime sweepstakes. Winners win a trip across Europe on the world's finest luxury train, or the remarkable new Sony Watchman TV. For details, look for store displays of Diet Coke with 100% NutraSweet. But hurry, enter before it's too late.
You may just win the adventure of a lifetime.
Welcome back, everybody. My instincts are to say the old intro. Welcome to the cemetery. I'm former gravedigger Nathan Barnett from spooky old New England, and you're watching Grave Stories. That's what I used to say. But I guess I still could say that, but I'd have to change the end. Welcome back to the cemetery. I'm former gravedigger Nathan Barnett from spooky old New England, and you're watching Nathan's Cemetery. Because I think that's what I'm going to call it now. I don't think I'm going to call it Grave Stories. I think I'm just going to call it Nathan's Cemetery. That's what the channel is, so that's what the episodes are. So I guess the old videos will be great. Maybe I'll do, because I might still read the ghost stories from the book and do like more crude videos where I'm just literally sitting there reading a book, reading ghost stories. Maybe those will be saved for Grave Stories, because those are more stories. And these are more investigations. I wrote this whole thing that I'm about to tell to you, did some research on the material, and I'm just telling you what I've learned. So I guess these will be Nathan's Cemetery episodes. So yeah. Here we go. This is the first one. Thanks for subscribing to this channel. This is all you're going to get on this channel is spooky stuff once a week. Halloween's coming. I'd like to say in 2 months, but I guess it's more than that. But we'll just say 2 months. All right, here we go. Party time. Let's go. It's the weekend of Father's Day. Dennis, along with his father, grandfather, and brother, go camping in the Smoky Mountains. The first day of this camping trip was great. They found their spot and set up with no issues. The two brothers played as their father and grandfather made a fire and cooked food. They had dinner on the fire, then told stories at night. They went to bed shortly after sundown. The next morning, they woke up early as the sun came up. They cooked and ate their breakfast, and shortly after, the brothers ran off and started playing again. They always remained in the campsite near the adults. A little while later, a man came by their campsite. He introduced himself and said he was camping nearby and also had kids. He thought it might be nice if he brought his kids over to play with Dennis and his brother. Dennis's father thought it was a great idea. So not too long after, did the man and his kids come and join Dennis's family. At their camping site, the man sat with Dennis's father and grandfather as the kids played with Dennis and his brother. The kids decided to play a game where they'd hide on the parents and see if they could find them. As the adults sat there, they watched the kids hide behind different rocks and trees. The parents played along, saying, "Oh boy, where did they go?" as if they couldn't see where the kids went. Dennis's father had his eyes on Dennis the whole time. He watched him hide behind a specific tree. Since Dennis was only 6, he was pretty small and he was able to fully hide behind this tree. But Dennis's father watched him go behind this exact tree. Then, suddenly, all of the children jumped out from behind their hiding spots, except for Dennis. Dennis's father called out to him, "Okay, Dennis, come out now." But Dennis didn't. Still, eyeing the tree with nowhere else for him to go, Dennis's dad said, "Dennis, come out." But still, nothing happened. Dennis's dad then got up and walked over to the tree, only to find that Dennis was not hiding there. Dennis's dad quickly ran off into the woods behind the tree. He looked everywhere, calling Dennis's name. There was no way such a little child could have gotten that far on his own in only a few minutes. His father ran over a mile calling his name. Everyone in the camp spread out and searched the area. No one could find Dennis. It was as if he vanished. in a matter of minutes. Dennis's father then reported his son missing with the park rangers. The police were brought in, as well as the Green Berets. They searched 60 miles of the forest and found nothing. No evidence of Dennis, no tracks, no clothes, no signs of struggle, nothing. They even had search dogs that couldn't pick up a scent of Dennis. Camping a few miles away from Dennis's site was a family with the last name Key. The Key family was out walking around unaware of the missing boy. As they were out, they found a park ranger and asked him where they could see some bears. The ranger informed them of an area where they could possibly see some bears in the forest. The Keys headed in that direction and began watching to see signs of bears walking around. Then, one of the children heard a scream. The child pointed out the noise in the direction it came from, and the whole family looked out into the forest where they saw a bear running in the distance. But the bear wasn't alone. It had something with it. There was something on the bear's shoulder. The quote from the father of the Key family was, "It didn't move or run like a normal bear. It looked like a bear, but moved more like a human that had something thrown over its shoulder." The animal they saw reportedly bobbed and weaved between the trees like a large man in a costume. It ran hunched over and was carrying something over one of its shoulders. The family said they thought it was a child. Later, the Key family told the investigators of Dennis's case what they had seen, but the investigators didn't take them seriously. They thought the Key family was making up the story to get publicity. No evidence of Dennis was ever found.
Sam Jones is the highwayman.
And I want you.
Jacko is Jimbo. Together,
We're assault.
two guys out to energize your Friday.
Watch out!
Heading your way this Friday, the highwayman.
It was a very, very cold day in February of 1978 when a young man named Stephen Kubaki went out for a day of cross-country skiing, then ventured out onto the frozen ice of Lake Michigan. What was meant to be a one-day trip turned into over a year of horror. Stephen was a 23-year-old man from Massachusetts, like myself. Although, I guess I'm not 23 anymore. The body of a 23-year-old at least. We have that in common. Anyway, he was away from home studying history at a small college in Michigan. On a Sunday, when he had no classes, Stephen decided to go out for a cross-country ski trip that would only take up to the better part of a day. While he was out, he came up to the shoreline of Lake Michigan. The lake was frozen at the time. When you think of a frozen lake, you normally think of a flat, still body of water. But Lake Michigan doesn't freeze like that. It actually freezes in pretty crazy waves and uneven shapes. Stephen decided to go walk out onto the lake to look at the frozen ice. But before he did, he took off his skis and his backpack and left them in the snow on the shore. Now, when people talk about this event, they often say it was strange that Stephen left his stuff on the shore. I personally don't think it was that odd or him showing some signs of weird behavior. I would have probably done the same thing if I was going out onto the ice. If it breaks and you're wearing a backpack, it'll weigh you down and be harder to get out of the water. So I think it makes sense. And taking the skis off would obviously make it easier to walk. So Stephen did just that. He left his stuff and then ventured out onto the ice. Now, this is where it does get strange. Stephen walked through the snow that was on the frozen lake. You could see his footprints that he was leaving behind. He walked for 200 yards onto the ice where he apparently stopped. We know this because his tracks stopped, like completely dead. That is also where he vanished. That was the last evidence of his existence. When his friends didn't hear from him for a day, they reported him missing. Investigators soon discovered his bag and his skis on the frozen shore of the lake and his footprints. They followed them out onto the lake to where they stopped, and they couldn't find any sign of him anywhere. They did a pretty thorough search for him using the Coast Guard, police, planes, helicopters, dogs, snowmobiles, and even his parents came out from Massachusetts to help with the search. After no luck, no leads, no evidence, no sightings of Stephen, they ended the search. The police assumed he must have fallen through the ice somewhere. The police determined there was no crime and no signs of foul play. It seemed he was on the ice all alone and then disappeared. Alone. 1 year and 3 months later, May of 1979, a woman was driving down the street in Pittsfield, Massachusetts, when she sees a disheveled man walking on the side of the road. He held his thumb out, the universal sign for a hitchhiker looking for a ride. The woman pulled over and opened her door. The man got in without saying much more than a quiet thank you. It was the 1970s when hitchhiking was pretty common. It was also Western Mass, which leans more into the hippie crowd. So this woman probably didn't think twice about giving the young man a ride. After all, he looked like he needed the help. After some time, the woman and the man pull up to a house 20 miles away from where she had picked him up. He says thank you and gets out of the car. He walks up to the door and knocks. A woman answers the door and her jaw drops. She can't believe what she's seeing. Standing there before her is her nephew, Stephen Kubaki, who went missing 15 months earlier. Stephen asked his aunt if he could use the phone to call his dad. It turns out Stephen woke up in a field of grass 830 miles away from Lake Michigan, or 1,335 kilometers. He woke up in the middle of the grass in Pittsfield, Massachusetts, which again is the western side of Massachusetts near New York State. I'd like to point out that from where he was in Michigan to Pittsfield is a 12-hour drive, or 2 weeks of straight walking with no breaks. But I guess you could do that if you had 15 months to do it. After he woke up in the grass, he had no idea how he got there. He asked a stranger where he was. They told him he was in Massachusetts and the date and time. Stephen couldn't remember anything. He only remembered walking out onto the ice a year earlier and then laying in the grass. He had no memory of the past year. He also said the clothes that he was wearing were not his. So he traveled 20 more miles to Great Barrington, Mass., a nearby town where his aunt lived. At his aunt's house is where he called his father. His whole family quickly rushed over to see him. They were all obviously very emotional. Stephen himself said, "I was confused by all the hugging and kissing. I didn't feel like I had been gone that long." He also said that his last memory was being cold and scared of being lost in the frozen darkness, which sounds like he may have gotten lost on the lake. It got dark, he fell asleep, and passed out. But how did he live through the night? Who picked him up? Who helped him? Who abducted him? Or did he suffer a mental break and some form of amnesia due to the intense life-threatening situation? Something interesting that Stephen said was he felt like he had done a lot of running. So did he eventually make it off the lake in the dark while not in a fully conscious mental state? Did he just keep walking and wandering around not knowing who he was? It's possible. Some things he had on him a year later in Massachusetts were running shoes and a California road map. So maybe he walked to California, then back across the whole country to the East Coast. Something that I feel is worth mentioning is where Stephen disappeared from. It was the southeastern boundary of the Lake Michigan Triangle. This is an area with heavily documented strange activity like plane crashes, shipwrecks, and vanishings. According to reporter Ellen Killeran, there are stories of ghost ships, ghost planes, heavily corroborated UFO sightings, and one particularly spine-chilling tale about a competitive sailing crew that passed through what sounds like a vortex during a practice run on a calm, early summer evening. This happened just a few months after Kubaki vanished, when he was still missing. The Lake Michigan Triangle is one of the many triangular areas on the planet, like the well-known Bermuda Triangle, that seem to produce mysterious behavior. If you want me to find more stories from the triangles, please let me know, because I'd love to do some episodes on them. My theory is that Stephen might have experienced a fugue state, which is a rare psychological condition where a person loses awareness of their identity and surroundings, often followed by periods of amnesia. This theory aligns with the reported loss of memory and disorientation Kubaki experienced upon his return. However, this theory does not explain how he managed to travel such a significant distance, or why he suddenly woke up and remembered who he was, laying in the field. But that's all we know.
If you were gonna cook up some burgers tonight, you broil them on a flame, make them taste just right. So isn't it nice to know there's a place to go where they make it just as good as you can make it yourself? That's why we do it like you do it when we do it like we do it at Burger King. We do it like you would do it when we do it like we do it at Burger King.
Famous survivalist Les Strad, more commonly known as Survivor Man, put this missing persons case to the test by going out to the exact location and traveling the route that the person went in the same amount of time. That missing person was a 2-year-old boy in the year 1952. They went missing in the forest of Ritter, Oregon. Ritter is a very rural place. It looks just like Red Dead Redemption 2. I'll paraphrase what Survivor Man said after walking this route. How did a 2-year-old child travel 12 miles at night in sub-freezing temperatures? I can't even do this. The 2-year-old boy, Keith, was playing outside with his brothers and sisters. They were visiting their grandfather's ranch. The ranch was very isolated from civilization. Forests and nature as far as the eye could see. At lunchtime, the grandparents called the kids inside to eat. All of the kids went running into the house. Inside, the grandparents realized they were missing a child. Keith, the 2-year-old boy. He must be outside still. So they went to the door and called out his name. They heard no response. There was no sight of Keith in the backyard or immediate area. The family ran outside and immediately started looking for him. They called his name and ran in all directions. No one was able to find him. The family called the police and they kicked off a full-fledged search. Later that day, they discovered their first bit of evidence of the boy 4 miles away from the ranch. They saw footprints that matched the size of the boy's feet. 4 miles is really far for a 2-year-old. You've literally just begun walking recently, and then you walk 4 miles in the wilderness? I know full-grown adults that cannot walk 4 miles, nor that fast. So either way, the footprints went on for miles after that. Then they suddenly stopped. They lost the tracks. It was as if he was lifted up off the ground and disappeared. He was nowhere to be found in that area. They looked up trees, they looked in bushes, but they found nothing. It wasn't looking very good for the boy. He wasn't wearing very warm clothes. There was snow everywhere and it was starting to get dark. When night came along, it was dark as pitch. It was likely that if he was alive somewhere, he would soon freeze to death. Regardless of the odds, they kept looking throughout the night and into the next day. As the search for the boy went on, the party spread farther and farther out, widening the perimeter of the search. When they reached 12 miles from the ranch, a member of the party saw something on the ground. They ran over to the object and saw a boy laying face down in the snow. They called to Keith's father, who was about 300 feet away. His father ran as fast as he could over to the people calling him. As he's running, he sees the image of a boy laying on the ground, face first in the snow, frozen and not moving. A very odd detail that they all noticed was the boy was not wearing his coat. It was laying on the ground next to him, but it was folded and placed right next to him. The boy's hat was also not on him, and it was placed on top of the jacket, like someone put his clothes there perfectly to be found. The father runs over to the boy and picks him up. He turns the boy around and his face is covered in claw marks. Something attacked his face. It was a sad, creepy sight. Then, unexpectedly, as his father was holding him, the boy opened his eyes. He was miraculously alive. They asked the boy, "What happened to you and who did this to you?" He said, "A cat did it." Since he was only 2 years old, his communication skills and understanding weren't ideal. The answer he gave to all the questions was, "A cat did it." Maybe it was a cat. Maybe it was a mountain lion, one that carried him off. But did it place him down and then neatly fold his clothes? Now, if I was a 2-year-old, I might think most animals were a cat, or even a bear, or a Sasquatch, or whatever the Key family saw in the Dennis Martin case. I can't help but draw the similarities to many of these stories. It would be easy to explain all of these details if Bigfoot was real. We would say, oh yeah, makes sense. A Bigfoot could easily carry a person this far. They could fold their clothes. They would know where to hide. They could avoid being found, of course. But unfortunately, we don't know if they're real. So we'll just have to speculate. Regardless of all of that, it's fortunate that Keith Parkins was found alive. In a lot of these cases, they're not found at all and assumed dead, or they're found dead. So he's incredibly fortunate to have lived through this very strange experience, and will unfortunately probably never know the truth of what really happened.
Dad, next time, let's rent a forklift. A lamp, whoops. What's that smell?
Smells like something died over here.
It's over here.
Wait, it's your shirt.
Presenting Surf detergent, now available in liquid. Surf not only washes out dirt, it washes out tough odors too.
Looks clean, huh?
Yeah. Smells okay too.
Can somebody help me move this piano?
Now in powder and liquid, Surf removes the dirt and the odors.
Well, that's it for today. Thank you for watching. Please like and subscribe if you haven't already, and click the bell because it really does help give you the notifications so you can keep coming back and watching all of the videos. So now it's time to say goodbye until I see you again amongst the graves.